Really, the question is from the translation of verse 13, where Krishna says you should be equipoised and treat everyone equally. अब if I thought it, थोड़ा सा हम deep सोचें अगर तो when we say equipoised means we should see that everyone is part and parcel of Krishna. So I'm just trying to understand two theories together and help me understand how we should behave in our day-to-day life with this. So at the same time, we say that, if you see a snake is of course part and parcel of Krishna, but in the mode of ignorance. So yes, even though, sorry, Hare Krishna. Am I audible, Mataji, Prabhuji?
Yeah.
Okay. So even though we are equipoised, we are seeing that as part and parcel of Krishna, but we know the action from our side is not to preach Krishna consciousness to the snake but run away, right? That's one thing. The other thing is we say our duty when we say that we are in this, we of course are fallen, but at the same time we see people around us, and you of course wanted to somehow see that how can these souls get to Krishna consciousness, right? So sometimes I feel, when we are doing bhakti, there are people around us who do not like or do not appreciate the acts that we are doing in bhakti. So in an indirect way, when we are performing those acts, those people are actually, it's kind of sin to not admire those acts in bhakti, no? Then how can we prevent or protect those people from committing indirect sins?
See, it's a very big question actually, the whole discussion that we can have around that. See, every living entity is a part and parcel of Krishna. Every object is coming from Krishna. So technically speaking, everything is a part and parcel of Krishna. But under the influence of the modes of nature, they act in different ways. The so-called friend or the enemy is just a conditioned soul. For example, you have a pet dog or a pet cat. That animal will be very friendly and very affectionate to you. But if you go to a river and there's a crocodile or a hippo, it will be very aggressive with you. Just different animals, just different souls covered by different modes of nature. And therefore, their influence is visible in different times. So when it comes to the so-called enemies or friends, actually, you see, that is our vision. We think, oh, this is my friend or this is my enemy. Because I have some expectation.
Yes. Yeah.
So that is the cause of our misery. See, like we see, Krishna says, Daivi esha gunamai mamaya duratyaya mama eva ye prapadyante mayam etam tarantite. Now, this verse is very profound if you see. Mama eva ye prapadyante mayam etam tarantite. Those who surrender to me, I deliver them from these three modes. So, if someone is not delivered from these three modes, what does that really imply? That means that living entity has not surrendered to Krishna. So that is the vision of a materialist. This is my friend and this is my enemy. Actually, if you see in this material world, if you see the song of Avanti Brahmana or others also, you see actually the so-called enemies in this world are our real friends. Because they are turning us away from material world.
Teaching, yes.
But the so-called friends, especially when they are not devotees, they are actually a manifestation of Maya.
Yes.
Oh, this is my friend, this is my girlfriend, this is my boyfriend, my father, my husband, my son. All these are just attachments. In this material world, who belongs to us? No one really. So we hang on to Maya. निकटस्था माया तारा जापटिया धरे कृष्णेरा बहिर्मुख है भोग वांछा करे. So कृष्णेरा बहिर्मुख होए भोग वांछा करे. So when someone turns his face away from Krishna and tries to enjoy, nikatistha maya tara japatiya dhare. So in this world, there are only two kinds of objects. That is Krishna or Maya. So when we are preaching, this position is quite complicated, position of a preacher. So a preacher has to see someone as separate from Krishna, yet at the same time, unless one is on the highest platform, one cannot preach. So a Madhyam Adhikari actually descends to the platform of, Uttam Adhikari descends to the platform of Madhyam Adhikari and then tries to see, who is favorable to Krishna and who is not. So he tries to turn everyone towards Krishna. So you see, in this way, in this world, we really have to clarify our own vision. So sometimes we may live with so-called relatives or family members who are opposed to our activities. Then in that case, we should tolerate them and eventually leave them. Because the real purpose of human life...
Prabhuji, then...
Yes?
No, go ahead. Go. No, you continue. Sorry.
So the real purpose is to attain Krishna. So, well, I'm not suggesting that you leave your family or something. That is too drastic. You just try to attach more and more to Krishna. Then Krishna will adjust the circumstances.
Somewhere or other, Prabhuji. Yeah. So say you are doing some bhakti. You are doing bhakti and I come and I'm opposed to it. So somewhere or other, your acts of performing bhakti is making me sinful because now I am more reverted against Krishna, no? So your actions are actually making me more sinful. This is my dilemma. Like, where do we draw this line? Like, am I actually now making people sinful?
See, let me give you one very crude analogy. Now imagine you're driving a 40-footer, say Toronto to Ontario. You're driving a Canvas or Peterbilt, and and it's like you're dragging a B double or something behind you, 60,000 pounds or something, and I come driving a teeny tiny, a Suzuki or a Honda, and I bang you from behind. Who's guilty in this traffic accident?
Well, the person who banged from the behind.
Yeah, you're driving within the speed limits, state specified speed limits. You are maintaining the lane discipline, and you are not even aware that I exist. So who's at fault? Naturally, my teeny tiny Honda is at fault, right? Now suppose you were driving and you saw me from the rear mirror that okay, he's driving, and then you suddenly press the brakes, and then I skidded and I then hit you. Now who's at fault?
Then I am at fault. Then why did I all of a sudden press the brake?
Exactly. So when you are rendering your devotional service, and and you're not really going out to meet anyone, and someone comes and gets aggravated by seeing you, how can it be your fault? So if you're considering the example of Prithu Maharaj here, so initially Prithu Maharaj was not at fault when Indra tried to steal and he tried to kill. But again and again when he was doing it, and again when Indra started coming, it was not needed. That yajna that he was doing, Ashwamedha, was not needed. That was on a mundane platform. But when you are chanting, when you are reading, that is not mundane, that's spiritual. Because devotees by nature try to avoid any aggravation. If someone starts getting more and more sinful seeing your devotional activity, then that's his problem, not yours. Provided you are following all the rules and regulations properly.
So we shouldn't stop thinking that because of our activities, somebody is actually getting more sinful.
Yeah, for spiritual activities, nothing. Well, what to speak of non-devotees? Even devotees become more and more offensive if you render, loyal devotional service to Srila Prabhupada. So, if they are becoming more and more offensive, that's not our fault. If someone thinks that you are doing something wrong by following Prabhupada, even if he's a so-called big devotee or anything, he's a rascal. And if he becomes more and more offensive, that's his fault. That's not our problem. He'll go to hell. What can we do? We can, offer our condolences.
Okay.
So if someone wants to commit suicide, that's not our problem. But we should not try to aggravate anyone. We should not needlessly go and aggravate someone. Like, not that you take your chanting beads and you sit in front of them and say, hey, take that. Don't do that. Then you are offensive.
Yes.
Avoid all
Calmly,
sorts of
whatever
trouble.
is possible.
Yes, whatever is possible.
ठीक है जी. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. That was helpful.
Okay. Yes. So we start. नमः ओम विष्णु पदाय कृष्ण पृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी नामने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारणे श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. So text 14. ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय.
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 श्रेय प्रजापालनम एव राज्ञो.
श्रेयः प्रजापालनम् एव राज्ञो.
यत् साम्पराये सुकृतात् षष्ठम अंशाम.
यत् साम्पराये सुकृतात् षष्ठम अंशम्.
हर्तान् यथा हृत पुण्य प्रजानाम.
हर्तान् यथा हृत पुण्य प्रजानाम्.
अरक्षिता करहारोघम अत्ति.
अरक्षिता करहारोघम अत्ति.
Yes, would someone like to read?
May I read, Prabhuji?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Ji. Hare Krishna. Translation. To give protection to the general mass of people who are citizens of the state is the prescribed occupational duty of the king. By acting in that way, the king in his next life shares 1/6 of the result of the pious activities of the citizens. But a king or executive head of the state is who simply collect taxes from the citizens but does not give them proper protection as human beings has the results of his own pious activity taken away by the citizens, and in exchange for his not giving protection, he becomes liable to punishment for the impious activities of his subjects. Purport. The question may be raised here that if everyone is engaged in spiritual activities to attain salvation and became indifferent to the activities of the material world, then how could things as they are go on? And if the things are to go on as they ought to, how can a head of a state be indifferent to such activities? In answer to this question, the word Shreya, auspicious, is used here. The division of activities in the society are arranged by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who not blindly or accidentally created, as foolish people say. The Brahmana must do his duty properly, and the Kshatriya, Vaishya, and even the Shudra must do the same. And every one of them can achieve the highest perfection of life liberation from this material bondage. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 18.45. Savaya karmanya abhiratya samsiddhim labhade nara. By executing one's prescribed duty, one can attain the highest perfection. Lord Vishnu advised Maharaj Prithu that the king is not enjoined to give his kingdom and is not enjoined to give up his kingdom and the responsibility of protecting the prajas of citizens, to instead go away to the Himalayas for liberation. He can attain liberation while executing his royal duties. The royal duty or the duty of the head of the state is to see that the praja and the general mass of people are doing their prescribed duty for spiritual salvation. The regular state does not necessitate a king or head of the state who is indifferent to the activities of prajas. In the modern state, the government has many rules and regulations for conducting the duties of the praja, but the government neglects to see that the citizens advance in spiritual knowledge. If the government is careless in this matter, the citizen will act whimsically without any sense of God realization or spiritual life and thus become entangled in sinful activities. An executive head should not be careless to the welfare of the general mass of people while he simply goes on collecting taxes. The king's real duty is to see that the citizens gradually become fully Krishna conscious. Krishna conscious means completely free from all sinful activities. As soon as there is complete eradication of the sinful activities in the state, then there will be no war, pestilence, famine, or natural disturbances. This was actually prevailing during the reign of Maharaj Yudhishthir. If a king or the head of government is able to induce the citizens to become Krishna conscious, then he is worth to rule over the mass of people. Otherwise, he has no right to levy taxes. If the king looks after the spiritual interests of the citizens, he can levy taxes without difficulties. In this way, both the subjects and the king will be happy during this life, and in the next life, the king will also be able to share 1/6 of the pious activities of the citizens. Otherwise, by levying taxes on the sinful citizens, he will have to share the reactions of their sinful activities. This same principle can be applied to parents and spiritual masters as well. If parents simply give birth to child like cats and dogs, but cannot save their children from imminent death, they become responsible for the activities of their animalistic children. Lately, such children are turning into hippies. Similarly, if a spiritual master cannot direct his disciple to become free of sinful activities, he becomes responsible of their sinful acts. These subtle laws of nature are unknown to the present leaders of the society. Since the leaders of the society have a poor fund of knowledge and the citizens in general are rogues and thieves, there cannot be an auspicious situation for human society. At the present moment, the whole world is full of such an incompatible combination of state and citizens, and therefore there is constant tension, war, anxiety as an inevitable result of such social conditions. Thank you, Ji. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much, Francis. So to give protection to the general masses of people who are citizens of the state is the prescribed occupational duty for a king. So you see here, now what is the context of this verse? Lord Vishnu has appeared in the arena of sacrifice and he's advising Maharaj Prithu to stop these mundane sacrifices and instead focus on his own salvation. So he's giving spiritual knowledge here. So the previous verse we saw, the Lord advised the king, do not be disturbed by temporary distress or happiness, fully control your mind and senses. In this transcendental position, try to execute your duty as king in whatever condition of life you may be posted by my arrangement. For your only duty is to give protection to the citizens of your kingdom. So you see, when we are studying Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita, we should always try to connect the verses. Look at the flow of the verses. Don't take the verses standalone. Standalone, certainly you can relish them and there is certainly sense. But when you start connecting them, you see the deeper meaning. You understand the deeper context. And you can actually see how it reflects in our own lives. So in the previous verse, the Lord gave a seemingly contradictory instruction. He said, become completely detached from the material world. I mean, this was the indirect meaning of that you become completely detached from material nature. But at the same time, rule your subjects wisely. So, and I am putting you in a position where you should rule. So you see, we have seen, we are going to see in the next canto that one should not become a king, a spiritual master, a mother, a father, or a demigod if one cannot deliver one's dependents. So the position of a leadership, the position of a leader is a very important and critical one. Meaning that it's only about responsibility. In this material world, we are not here to enjoy anything. Krishna, we were discussing this. Mama evaya prapadyante maya metam tarantite. What is there in this material world? The 24 elements and the 3 modes of nature, the 3 gunas. Devi esha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya. So this material world is just composed of material elements. So why should Lord advise anyone to become a father, a mother, a spiritual master, or a king, or anything? The Lord will certainly not give a mundane instruction. That means the Lord's instruction has a spiritual meaning. So one has to become a king, a father, a mother, a spiritual master, or a demigod only for the welfare of other living entities who are bound by the material nature very tightly, who are bound by the 3 gunas, the 3 ropes very tightly. So the only responsibility of a person in such a leadership role is to turn these bound living entities towards Krishna. So that's the only responsibility of a leader. So certainly it's a dangerous situation. It's a dangerous position. For example, if you're a squadron leader in the army, if you're leading a squad or you're leading a company or anything, you have to lead your men. You cannot say that, enemy has guns, I'm scared, so maybe my men can go, but I'll wait behind them. No, that's just not how the army works. You lead your men from the front. So a leader has to lead everyone towards Krishna. That means he himself must be Krishna conscious. So while it is a privilege, a person in the position of leadership certainly gets benefits in terms of wealth and some prosperity or at least respect. But there is a price to pay. So one has to take the reaction of one's dependents. So that's a danger that a leader always runs. So there's a story of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. One day he was walking in the forest with his disciples. And when a spiritual master was walking in the forest with his disciples, and they saw a snake being eaten alive by ants. Seeing such a ghastly sight, the disciples were horrified, and they asked the Guru Maharaj. And the spiritual master replied. He said, this snake was a spiritual master in previous birth, and these ants were his disciples. He neglected to deliver them from material nature, and now they have taken this birth where they're going to eat him alive. So this is like an apocryphal story. This is like a parable, but it has a deep meaning. That if one takes up a leadership role but does not execute the duties, one becomes bound by sinful reactions. So here the king suffers 1/6 of the sinful activities of all the praja. For example, if we see countries like, all the countries of the world, predominantly the whole world is now full of meat eaters, rakshasas. So you can see the so-called leaders who are now enjoying the positions of state, of heads of state. They're all going to hell for taking up such a huge karmic load. The duty of the position of a king is to ensure that everyone is spiritually advanced. It is mentioned that in the kingdom of Lord Ram, we're going to see this in the 9th canto, that in the kingdom of Lord Ram, actually the living entities did not even need to die if they did not want. So you can imagine the level of piety that existed, that if one did not want, one need not die. So that's why it was called Ramarajya. And that's why Srila Prabhupada mentions in the Bhagavatam that the Ramarajya is something that people really always talk about, because Ramarajya was not some economic condition or some political situation. Ramarajya was a situation of pure spiritual consciousness. So everyone was living a very safe and pious life. So if a head of a state simply becomes a prime minister or a president to collect taxes and live at the cost of others, then he'll have to suffer all the karma. So practically speaking, if he is not spiritually minded or he's atheistic, then he will be going to hell practically for eternity. Likewise, people have children. Hey, I'm a man, I need to get married, I must have children. But dogs also do that. A dog also, as soon as it grows up, it finds a female and has some children. There's nothing very glorious about having children. Because if one has children, it's a heavy responsibility. Dharmo hitesham adhiko vishesho dharmena hina pashubhir samanam. So dharma, what is this dharma? Dharma means responsibility, it means duty, it means a characteristic. So the dharma of a parent is to deliver Krishna consciousness to the child. So simply, I have a son, I have a daughter, that doesn't mean anything. What a parent is supposed to do is to deliver the child from the clutches of material existence. As we have seen in the 3rd canto, Srila Prabhupada explains in the marriage of Kardam Muni and Devahuti, that unless one is sure that the child would be either a pure devotee or an acharya, one need not have any child. Simply having an atheistic child is a great danger, because one will have to take birth to deliver that child. One will have to take birth, one will be forced to take up the karma of that sinful child, because one has enjoyed the childhood of such an offspring, one has enjoyed the activity of creation of such an offspring, so therefore one becomes implicated in that sinful karma also. So it's a very, very risky situation for a human being. That's why we say dharma, uttishta jagrat prape varan nibodhita. Shurasya dharaya nishita duratyaya. So shurasya dharaya nishita duratyaya. It is as sharp as a razor's edge. Now one may say, oh, I don't believe in any of this. That doesn't matter. If the rabbit hides his face in the bush and he says that he doesn't believe in the wolf will anyhow come and eat him up. So if we don't believe in the words of the scriptures, it doesn't make any difference. The scriptures are simply stating the facts. You cannot go to the government and say, I don't believe in your authority. Government will simply lock you up. Because government has the authority, whether you believe it or not. So therefore, the words of scriptures must never be neglected. And here it is Lord Vishnu himself who is speaking this. It's not that Srila Prabhupada is explaining. This is Lord Vishnu himself speaking. And in the last paragraph where we have talked about the extension of this logic to spiritual master and parents, this is also explained by Maharaj Rishabdev in the 5th canto, the next canto. So these are all statements of the scriptures by great personalities. So this is Lord Vishnu, that is Rishabdev, Shakti-Avesh Avatar. So in other words, that is also the Lord only speaking. So likewise, nowadays, like it's a fashionable thing that people want to have a guru. Oh, everyone has initiation. I must also have initiation. Fine, have an initiation, but please understand what is the implication of getting initiated. What is the meaning of initiation? So if you take initiation from a guru and you don't follow the principles, then you will go to hell and guru will have to come with you. And because guru is going to hell, all the disciples will also go there. So you become responsible for delivering so many souls to hell. That itself is a hellish act. So it's a very dangerous situation. Human life is meant for very, very careful consideration and tapasya, for purification. Human life is not meant for enjoying like dogs, hogs, camels, and asses. So therefore, whether one is a king or a parent or a spiritual master or anything, one must be very particular. Hare Krishna. Yes, any questions or comments?
Prabhuji, now the previous discussion that we were having is even more tedious now. So here Krishna is saying that, of course, if we have children or we have parents or we have any family member, all the family members are dependent on each other. If somehow or other they cannot get to Krishna consciousness, then indirectly you are sinful.
Yes.
So double whammy ho gayi na pehle. How should we handle now?
See, let's put it very simply. Why does a man or a woman get married? To enjoy. Simple as that. Let's put it very crudely. Let's get it down to fundamentals.
Yeah.
No one says, oh, I will get married and I will deliver this soul to Krishna.
No.
Oh, if you really do think that you can deliver someone to Krishna, why on earth you want to get married?
Yes.
You will deliver yourself to Krishna. I mean,
true.
Acharyas have not married 10,000 people to deliver them. So certainly there was a material consciousness of enjoyment. So you see, if you want to enjoy popcorn in a mall, you need to pay like $4 or $5, isn't it? For a bucket of popcorn. If you don't have $5, you don't take the popcorn. Or if you do take the popcorn, you become liable to pay $5 or something, right?
Yes.
So this is like a credit card payment. We have enjoyed the family life. Now is the time to repay that. So if we continue to enjoy the association of such family members, then we must ensure that they are getting delivered. Otherwise, we will take another birth to deliver them. We enjoyed their association, but we did not give them what was necessary. So we have to give them, maybe with some interest.
For sometimes they're not willing to take it, in the sense it's the more you say, the more revert people become of Krishna. So that's even more worse, no?
Yeah, then don't enjoy their association. If you derive even, so you see, this is like a very complicated situation. But now, because we are studying the Srimad Bhagavatam, I am giving you very non-diplomatic answers. So all this talk about love and compassion for the family is on a mundane platform. In reality, one has to always be very aware about one's spiritual identity. See, why do you think we, in the previous chapter, we were reading about Prithu Maharaj's grandfather, King Vena. Why did his great-grandfather, what was his name, Maharaj Ang, why did he leave the household? Because he realized that he's a father, but the son is a demon and he can't do anything about him.
Yeah.
You see? So we have to follow Mahajana Yena Gata Sapantha. So you see, now on a more practical note, what I can suggest is, if the family members are demonic, then we must maintain very minimal association with them. We just do our duty. If the child is demonic, the mother can simply feed him, educate him, and then tell him to be off. One should not maintain any affection for such a child. When Duryodhan was born, the sages recommended that he be thrown in the forest. They said that this child will destroy the whole family. It's better that he be thrown in the forest to be eaten by wild animals. But because Dhritarashtra neglected, Dhritarashtra, that is our position also. Dhritarashtra neglected the instruction and he saw his whole family destroyed in front of him. So you see, that's a dangerous situation. So in spiritual life, spiritual life is very difficult. It's not easy. It's not meant for very, easygoing people. Bhakti means we have to think all the time. We have to be very, very cautious.
So on one way, we say we should maintain a distance, which makes sense. We should maintain, we should do our duty as need be and still maintain a distance. On the other side, we say, okay, parents or your in-laws, you need to make sure they are like your parents. They brought you and you have a huge responsibility towards them. Otherwise, you will go to hell. So how do these things, how would you maintain? So at the same time, you are maintaining a distance, but at the same time, if you don't do what you are supposed to do or go to a certain extent, then you are still sinful. So either way, you are sinful regardless.
No. There's a subtle distinction here. So, Jaktvasa dharmam charanam bhujam hare bhajan napakota patet tato yadi. So one who has surrendered to the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, he has no duties. So you try to increase your surrender. See, you have duty. Every human being is born with a duty. This duty can be spiritual and material. Materialistic dharma and spiritual dharma. So to the extent you are materialistic, you have material dharma. To the extent you are surrendered to Krishna, you have spiritual dharma. So when we say Tyaktva Swadharmam Charanam Bhujam Har, so to the degree you have surrendered to Krishna, to that extent you are freed from material duties. So if you still derive benefit of the association of your mother and father-in-law, you have a responsibility towards them. But the day you seek no benefit from them, you have no responsibility. You are surrendering to Krishna. But then, on the other hand, you should be focusing on Krishna consciousness.
Yes.
Then it can't be that you have neglected the parents-in-law, but you are watching a movie.
Exactly.
That is sinful. So you just for parents-in-law, your responsibility is to take care of their health, their food or whatever. You do that barely. When the Pandavas came back to Hastinapur after the battle of Mahabharata, they knew that this Dhritarashtra was inimical. He had even tried to kill Bhima. So they took care of him. They fed him and they clothed him, but they never went near him. And that is exactly what Vidura tells Dhritarashtra in the first canto of Bhagavatam, that you are living exactly like a dog. Pandavas are fearful of you and they keep their distance. They're just feeding you like one keeps a pet animal. So you have been a great king at one time. Why are you living in such a humiliating position? So likewise, the so-called family members who are inimical to Krishna consciousness, they need not be shown any affection. Whatever is the bare responsibility, you do that. Actually, in this material world, why should you show affection to anyone except for the spiritual master? You should show compassion, you should show concern, but that's about it. No affection. Any affection in this material world will bring us back here, will keep us here in this world. So they are our responsibility. Karma has brought us together. As long as we respect that karma, we have to take care. Otherwise, we can leave that place and go. See, the so-called mother, father, children, spouse, they are all manifestations of Maya. I think I am a man, therefore I have a wife. I think I am a woman, therefore I have a husband. On a spiritual platform, who's the husband and who's the wife? Who's the father? Who's the son? They are just living entities who have been brought together by our mutual karma.
Thank you, Prabhuji. I still have to think it through and I might have some more questions.
Yes, please. See, think it over. Don't act on it yet. Think it over properly. Then we can discuss more about it.
Yeah. Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Yes, sir. So, text 15. Rahul Prabhu, you had something to say also?
Prabhu, it is answered now.
Okay, it is answered. Okay, text 15. Please, my apologies in advance because sometimes, I do speak a bit harshly.
No, Prabhu, it's like a pill. Means kada is always, most of the time it is kadwa. So the more it is kadwa, we say in pharmacy language, the effect and potency will be more. So it should be more harsh. Now we can hear and accept it, because this is the reality. As soon as we understand, it will benefit us. Otherwise, we will keep hanging like a pendulum, birth after birth.
Yes, you see, Prabhu, when the milder antibiotic is not working, we take a stronger antibiotic. Bhagavatam keeps getting stronger and stronger.
And most of the time we say, Prabhuji, if infection is very deadly, then we have to cut and remove that part. So that is also one step, but one extreme step.
Yes. For the sake of the soul, the whole world may be sacrificed.
Yes.
See, I'm saying all of these things so that these words go in my own ears also, and I'm also able to implement them in my life.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes. Hari Hari. Thank you, Prabhu. So, text 15. Evam dvijagrayano matanuvratta.
Evam dvijagrayano matanuvratta.
Dharma pradhano nyatamo vitasya.
Dharma pradhano nyatamo vitasya.
Drisvena kalena grahopayatan.
Rastvena kalena grihopayatan.
Drishtasi siddhan anurakta loka.
Anurakta loka.
Yes. Would someone like to read? Yes, please.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Lord Vishnu continued, My dear King Prithu, if you continue to protect the citizens according to the instructions of the learned Brahmana authorities, as they are received by the disciplic succession, by hearing from master to disciple, and if you follow the religious principles laid down by them, without attachment to ideas manufactured by mental concoction, then every one of your citizens will be happy and will love you. And very soon you will be able to see such already liberated personalities as the four Kumaras, Sanat, Sanatan, Sanandan, and Sanat Kumar. Purport. Lord Vishnu advised King Prithu that everyone should follow the principles of Varnashram Dharma. Then, in whatever capacity one remains within this material world, his salvation is guaranteed after death. In this age, however, since the system of Varnashram Dharma is topsy-turvy, it is very difficult to strictly follow all the principles. The only method for becoming perfect in life is to develop Krishna consciousness. As Varnashram Dharma is executed from different positions by different men, so the Krishna consciousness principles can be followed by everyone in every part of the world. There is a specific purpose in mentioning herein that one should follow the Dvijagrayas, the most prominent Brahmanas like Parashar and Manu. These great sages have already given us instructions on how to live according to the principles of Varnashram Dharma. Similarly, Sanatan Goswami and Rupa Goswami have given us rules and regulations for becoming pure devotees of the Lord. It is essential, therefore, to follow the instructions of the Acharyas in the Parampara system, who have received the knowledge as passed down from spiritual master to disciple. In this way, although living in our material condition of life, we can get out of the entanglement of material contamination without leaving our position. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advises, therefore, that one does not have to change his position. One simply has to hear from the perfect source. This is called Parampara, and follow the principles for practical application in life. Thus, one can attain the highest perfection of life, liberation, and go back home, back to Godhead. In other words, the change required is a change in consciousness, not in the body. Unfortunately, in this fallen age, people are concerned with the body, not with the soul. They have invented so many isms pertaining to the body only, not to the soul. In the modern age of democracy, there are so many government representatives voting for legislation. Every day, they bring out a new law, but because these laws are only mental concoctions, manufactured by inexperienced conditioned souls, they cannot give relief to human society. Formerly, although the kings were autocrats, they strictly followed the principles laid down by great sages and saintly persons. There were no mistakes in ruling over the country and everything went perfectly. The citizens were completely pious. The king levied taxes legitimately, and therefore the situation was very happy. At the present moment, the so-called executive heads are more or less selected from materially ambitious persons who simply look after their own personal interests. They have no knowledge of the Shastras. In other words, the executive heads are fools and rascals in the strict sense of the term, and the people in general are Shudras. This combination of fools and rascals and Shudras cannot bring about peace and prosperity in this world. Therefore, we find periodic upheavals in society in the form of battle, communal riots, and fratricidal quarrels. Under these circumstances, not only are the leaders unable to lead the people toward liberation, but they cannot even give them peace of mind. In Bhagavad Gita, it is stated that anyone who lives on concocted ideas without reference to the Shastras never becomes successful and does not attain happiness or liberation after death. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, thank you, Prabhu. So many people have been, saying that, we speak too harshly and we are saying things. But you see here, Srila Prabhupada has spoken all these things. And this is only what we are quoting. So you see, my dear King Prithu, Lord Vishnu continued, my dear King Prithu, if you continue to protect the citizens according to the instructions of the learned Brahmana authorities, as they are received by the disciplic succession, by hearing from master to disciple, and if you follow the religious principles laid down by them without attachment to ideas manufactured by mental concoction, then every one of your citizens will be happy and will love you. And very soon you will be able to see such already liberated personalities as the 4 Kumaras. You see, so many conditions have been laid down here. So according to the instructions of Brahmana authorities, which have been received from disciplic succession, without any, and following the religious principles, without attachment to ideas made of mental concoction. So you see, so many conditions have been laid down here for a king. So you see, the king is not ruling because he likes to rule. There may be some attachment to the principle, but other than that, the king is ruling as a tapasya. The king is not really enjoying the wealth. He's not here to enjoy the kingdom like Duryodhan was thinking. Or for that matter, even Arjun was thinking in the beginning. But actually Arjun was detached. He said, what is the use of enjoying the kingdom when everyone is dead? So you see, the king rules as a matter of duty, and therefore he's able to renounce when time comes. And he's not ruling with his own, his own mental ideas. He's ruling as per the instructions of the Brahmanical councils. So in this today's world, we live in a democracy, demon crazy as Prabhupada used to call it. So everything is topsy-turvy. So what should be done? Where are grahasthas? Where are brahmacharis? Brahmacharis, sannyasis, the so-called everyone is like in the scriptures it is written that in the age of Kali Yuga, sannyas is forbidden because sannyasis cannot maintain the vows. A strict sannyasi should not even hear the name of a woman, should not even look at a wooden form of a woman. This is what the instruction is. So if such instructions are not being followed, then there is a chaos. So therefore, in the age of Kali, when Kurma Brahmana asks Mahaprabhu advises him, Grahe rahi Krishna naman nirantar laiva. So grahe rahi, Krishna naam nirantar laiva. Stay at your position, stay at home. So, stay in your position and constantly chant the names of the Lord. So by chanting constantly and preaching, Jare dekha tare kaha Krishna upadesh. So preach also, not just chant, you chant and preach. So Amara agya hai guru tara hai desh. So then the Lord continues and he assures that if we follow the principle of chanting and preaching, of course when we are preaching that implies reading also, which also falls in the category of Shravanam, hearing. So when we do this, then Mahaprabhu gives an assurance. Kabhu na badhive tomara vishaya tarang, punarapi eight hani pabe murasang. That the vishaya tarang, the waves of material nature will not affect you. And be assured that we will meet very soon, or rather, we will never part. So one who is chanting, reading and preaching very sincerely, Mahaprabhu is always with him. We may not perceive, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is there when we are preaching, because this is his mission. But there is only one condition, that we must chant and preach sincerely. There must be no trace of hypocrisy or personal ambition. As soon as that comes, Mahaprabhu will not be present. Then it becomes on an egoistic platform. Such kind of chanting or preaching will actually enhance our false ego, and we'll start thinking we are advancing, but we'll be actually falling down. So you see, today's government, we are always like we're living in a democracy where there are demonic kings. So therefore people are such fools that they're inventing so many isms. Feminism and socialism, feminism, nationalism. So if a devotee is not strong and he falls prey to such bogus philosophies, then his purpose of life will be lost. He will be finished. He will be drowned in the waves of Maya. So a devotee must be very careful to dissociate himself from all the materialistic considerations pertaining to society, religion, or whatever. As we have been discussing many times previously also, the king must be a pure devotee of the Lord, otherwise he's a rascal. And anyone who follows such a thug will also find a hellish condition. One may be chanting 16 rounds, 32 rounds, but if one's ideas are not clear, Yamdutas will be waiting for him. So you see, the so-called isms and Shudra kings, like for example, every country in this world is now slaughtering cows. There's no single country where cow slaughter is banned. So all these leaders are sinful demons. So what is the use of thinking that one leader is good or the other one is bad? They're all in the same category, demons. If we follow them, we'll also become demonic. If we support them, just as we see the example of Indra receiving favorable support from women, trees, water and land, then we have to also partake of that sinful reaction. Therefore, a devotee at least should be intelligent enough to avoid getting into all the political talks and nationalism and religionism and all that. This is only for fools and rascals, not for an intelligent devotee. Please remember, the process of bhakti as given by Srila Prabhupada is only meant for very intelligent people. All those who fall prey to these kind of materialistic thought processes fall in the category of kanishthas. No matter what dress they wear, what designations they carry, they fall in the category of fools. And their association is best avoided, because that will delude you also. You'll think you are advancing, but actually you'll be falling prey to materialistic misconceptions. And in this way, you'll be cheated of the purpose of life. You'll be cheated of the real benefit to be derived from this process of bhakti. Hare Krishna. Yes, Prabhu, any questions or comments here?
Can you please explain? Go.
So, Prabhuji, the way Prabhupada is describing here the Varnashram system, that how everything was so perfect. The kings were ruling perfectly, and the Praja, they were perfect. They were very pious, and everything was very happy and nice. Then I'm wondering, in such a situation, how do you really practice pure devotional service?
In an ideal situation?
Yes, means here they are following the Varnashram system. So in Varnashram system, it is like you are doing limited amount of sense gratification also, and you are slowly advancing. So this is a slow process, right? But when you are faced with a lot of difficulties in this material world, then you really feel the need to get out of it and take to devotional service. So when everything is going on so perfectly, I'm wondering how, what is the motivation for the people to get out of this material world and go to the spiritual world?
Actually, let's flip your question around. What is it that makes this material, what is it that makes this Varnashram Dharma ideal?
There is a balance of everything, and at the same time, you're advancing spiritually.
How? How?
Because you are working for Vishnu. Everything you are doing is for the satisfaction of Vishnu.
So,
and doing your prescribing.
So, if you're only working for Vishnu, where is the question of, where is the question of getting into trouble?
Yes,
the
but
very
then at the same time, that's what I want to understand. Okay, when we feel so desperate, I mean, in spite of facing so many difficulties, we still don't feel that desperation to get out of this material world. Then if in Varnashram system, everything is going on so well, and they are working for Vishnu also, then aren't they satisfied just living in this material world and continuing what they want to do?
No, why should they be? What is Varnashram? Okay, let's forget the Varna aspect. What is the ashram aspect? What are the 4 ashramas?
Okay, Brahmacharya, Grahastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas.
So what is the progression here?
Okay, so like sannyas is compulsory, was compulsory.
Yes. So you see, as a brahmachari, you learn that Krishna is the objective. As a grihastha, you teach others that Krishna is the objective. At Vanaprastha, you practice Krishna as the objective. In sannyas, you realize that Krishna is the objective. And therefore, the society is peaceful. The conditions are ideal because only Vishnu is the consideration. As soon as there is some personal consideration, the society is not ideal. Ramarajya existed because Ram was the center. Everyone's objective was Lord Ram. Therefore, it was Ramarajya. If people would start enjoying their own lives, it would fall down. So there was enjoyment because everything was related to Vishnu. As soon as Vishnu is not the center, it is no longer ideal Varnashram. Then one loses the motivation to get out of this life. Then one becomes, see, today's world is horrible. Everyone is suffering. But why only 20 people coming for Bhagavatam? When we were hearing, that course we were doing, how to study Bhagavatam, there were 50 people here. And everyone was saying, yes, we should study Bhagavatam daily. And now 30 people have run away. And they are devotees I'm talking about, initiated devotees. They have also run away. So apparently this material world is not so bad. People really like it. My wife is beautiful. I really want to enjoy. Krishna is not so much. Who wants to read this black and white text here? You're getting the point here.
Yes. But Prabhuji, how do you understand this limited or restricted sense gratification in this Varnashram system?
Yeah. So there is like Krishna is playing sometimes little bit. So in previous ages, sometimes men were playing wrestling or they were playing some small games. But main objective was Krishna all the time. Nobody had PlayStations. Nobody was driving around in Ferraris. Nobody was taking a vacation to Switzerland. No, very simple sense gratification. But most of now one more point here, it's a very beautiful point you raised. One more point is, when you go very deep into the scriptures, and that is only possible when you are pious, which is only possible when you are living in ideal Varnashram. So when you have a taste for studying the scriptures and understanding them from Brahmanas, you actually start relishing. Then you don't need any extraneous efforts to enjoy. You actually start relishing this activity. So you need some minimal entertainment, but at the same time, your consciousness becomes more and more fixed on Vishnu or Krishna. Then there is every motivation.
Are automatically satisfied.
Yeah. So this condition is ideal only because everyone wants to leave and go to Krishna, go back to Godhead. That is what makes this world ideal, not the material condition. That becomes ideal by corollary. Like if you go to, say, for example, if you go to an AIMS or an IIT hostel, conditions are ideal for studies because everyone wants to study there. So you see, this Varnashram is ideal Because everyone wants to leave and go back to Godhead. As soon as they desire to enjoy this world, it will no longer be ideal. And that makes it hellish.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Yes. So, any
Also,
other
Prabhuji,
questions or comments?
One more thing, Prabhuji. Would you mind giving? Can you please explain some in detail or some example about the sentence that says without attachment to ideas manufactured by mental concoction?
Oh, that's a very simple one actually. Mataji, we have been discussing this all the 4 cantos. So, without attachment to concocted isms, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Okay,
concocted isms. Acha.
So, nationalism. Oh, we are Hare Krishnas, but we are all Hindus. Oh, we are devotees, but we are all Indians. That is nonsense. That is complete nonsense. How can anyone even believe such nonsense? What kind of an intelligent man actually believes this? But only a fool will think that I am an Indian, I am a Hindu. I mean, the very first instruction of Gita is you are not that body. So where is this question of Hindu or Indian or black or white coming in? So that kind of ism a devotee should avoid. And one who doesn't avoid is not really a devotee. He's a fool, number one. So there may be bodily circumstances, but we are depending on Krishna. Mama evaya prapadyante mayam etam tarantite. And we are taking shelter of this so-called philosophy, then we are not taking shelter of Krishna. We may be very pious souls, but we are not devotees.
This could also be related to Guruji. Mental concoction could be, I'm thinking, say, this person is my friend or this person is my enemy. Right? That's my mental concoction.
Yes.
Oh, okay. इस तरह भी ले सकते हैं कि without attachment to the ideas, whatever you cultivated, that's your personal mental concoction. Do not get attached to it.
Yes. You may have to maintain cordial relations in this world, but do not think that these are permanent. Do not think that this is your, this is yours.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Okay, so we have reached the end of time. Very nice discussion, very good questions, and very nice attendance also. Let's continue tomorrow with text 16. Further instructions by Lord Vishnu. So thank you very much, everyone. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.